Depending on who you ask, the Cybertruck is the worst truck ever made. But you already knew that, you clicked on the video. Today, it's about how and why Tesla made this seemingly unending mistake. Or is it? Because as of today, even though it's slashing people's limbs, bricking itself in water, completely failing at basic truck tasks, and the whole Cybertruck pulling a 911 versus a 911 marketing campaign has been completely disproven, it's currently not only the best-selling vehicle over $100,000, it's the best-selling electric truck in America. To be honest, this video is difficult to make. Not because I don't want to criticize Tesla's most insane project to date, but because this singular vehicle, this monstrosity, has been the center of what seems like all automotive controversies and stories over the past what feels like 10 years. The truth is, I actually kinda love it. Or at least I can appreciate the engineering and technology under the hood, because the fact is, no matter what side of the Cybertruck argument you're on, there's no denying that from an engineering and technology perspective, the thing is kinda awesome. So, a few key points on the Cybertruck. Number 1, almost everything about this truck was overpromised from the outset. Number 2, it doesn't really do truck things all that well and has shown concerning reliability and build quality issues thus far. And number 3, none of this matters because it's a machine built for one thing and one thing only: clout. Tesla has always been okay with breaking rules, bending the norms, and shattering precedent in its relatively short time as a car manufacturer. And if we're being honest, that has been refreshing at times. Seeing a completely non-traditional car company being run by a very non-traditional CEO and taking over a completely new space in the automotive industry has been genuinely interesting to watch. But I'd argue that the Cybertruck has proven itself the flashpoint for folks who are sick of the Tesla bull. So, long story short here. In around 2017 and 2018, Elon Musk was, of course, tweeting as he does. And he expressed that one of his biggest wishes was to build a truck, and mentioned that he could possibly have a prototype ready in the next year, 2019. Elon said that his truck would be more like an armored personnel carrier, instead of a traditional pickup. And in November of 2019, they did this. And as Elon awkwardly stood around in his bomber jacket, the world, and certainly everyone in the audience, were floored. Elon delivered a prototype that perfectly matched his armored personnel carrier claim, and genuinely exceeded the exterior design expectations of everyone following this anticipated launch. It looked like a truck designed using an original PlayStation, but love it or hate it, it was a prototype that you, me, and everyone else couldn't stop looking at. And the design wasn't about impressive manufacturing or next-generation engineering practices, at least not on the surface, because I mean it appears mostly like flat sheet metal. But it was about the designers at Tesla being daring enough that they would release a space-aged, wedge-shaped, one-off movie car-looking thing and have the balls to pit it against the gigantic American truck market. And even better, when Tesla finally started shipping these things, which took a full 2 years longer than promised, they didn't change the design. It was the same crazy shape that we saw back in 2019. But that was where a lot of the promises ended. Glossing over the major beef that cropped up between Matt Farah and Jason Camisa, who, by the way, is a friend of ours, all over his frankly excellent video showcasing the Cybertruck, a video which Camisa has gotten flamed for making it apparently look and feel like one big Tesla ad, to which I'd say it's important to understand the distinction between a new product showcase and an actual automotive review. The fact of the matter is, the Cybertruck has fallen short on almost all of its promises. For instance, towing capacity. Elon's claims were 14,000 pounds, a number that would have beat the Ford F-150s he so often compared it to. For reference, the F-150 at the time towed just over 13,000 pounds. The real towing capacity, though? 11,000 pounds, over 3,000 fewer than promised, so not off to a great start. How about the maximum payload? Again, it was claimed that the Cybertruck could carry 3,500 pounds, which is a really solid number for a non-heavy-duty spec truck. But the real number? 2,500 pounds, an extremely average payload capacity for American pickups. The F-150, for instance, has a payload of 3,300 pounds. Those numbers, while they don't seem off by much, are significant to folks who haul stuff for a living, and need that capability in order to justify buying such a ridiculous truck. But let's forgive that for a second, because a lot of people don't really care about the towing and payload. One figure everybody does care about, though, is range. According to Tesla, based on the trim level of your Cybertruck, you could get anywhere from 250 miles of range in the rear-wheel drive version, around 340 with the dual motor setup, 301 in the powerful Cyberbeast edition, and well into the 400s with the optional range extender battery that, well, takes up like half the 6-foot bed that was promised to be 6.5 feet. Yeah, they didn't come through with that either. Car and Driver tested a Cyberbeast and got only 250 miles before it died, which, if my math is correct, is not 301. Motor Trend did a test on the dual motor Foundation series, and yes, I know there are a lot of random trim levels going on here, but what matters is this. Tesla said the dual motor Foundation truck specifically was supposed to go 318 miles on a charge. Motor Trend only got 224. That's over 90 fewer than it should have, and amongst the worst of its competition. All of this is made even more comical when you remember that in 2019, Elon said the truck would have the potential to run over 500 miles of range, and that it would have a starting price of under $40,000. And that the panel gaps and material tolerances would be so tight that the thing would float. But if there was one incident that we could point to from the 2019 soft launch as the bad omen, it was this.
Oh my God. Well, maybe that was a little too hard.
Even if you didn't care about the Cybertruck at all, you probably saw this on Twitter or something and at least chuckled to yourself. Like, this was the only thing they actually wanted to demonstrate live on stage, and they failed miserably. Look, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit about the Cybertruck's dynamic failures that we can pick at, but I also don't want to discredit the real innovations that Tesla brought to life here. Most obviously, it was actually quicker than first advertised. 2.9 seconds to 60 miles an hour was the original number, and it fell to just 2.6 seconds come production time, which is absolutely bonkers for a nearly 7,000-pound truck, not to mention that OEM 0 to 60 claims are almost always overly optimistic. Next, the Cybertruck's 48-volt electric architecture is genius. The traditional 12-volt systems that we've seen on previous EVs are a wiring and electronics mess, and the 48-volt system in the Cybertruck essentially simplifies those connections and makes them significantly more efficient. Something Rivian, by the way, still hasn't been able to do with their updated R1S. And then there's the high-tech steer-by-wire system, which removes any physical connection between the steering wheel and the wheels, which might sound scary, but this specific system has some serious engineering behind it that allegedly makes highway driving smoother by dulling the driver's inputs and makes low-speed maneuvers quicker and lower effort, something that's especially helpful in a tank like this. We've actually seen steer-by-wire before in both Lexus and Infiniti models, but the Cybertruck has proven to be the most advanced and dynamic showing of the tech thus far. And then there's the new 4680 battery cells that are much larger, cheaper to make, and way more efficient than the old cells. But the coolest part? Tesla makes these things in-house. Most OEMs source parts from electronics companies, especially when taking on such a big EV project, but not Tesla. They are making these things themselves, which saves money. Money that Tesla says gets passed on to you. But broken promises and new technology are only one part of the story here. What really matters is how it works in the real world. And that, my friends, leads me to my second point: reliability issues, and that the Cybertruck doesn't truck very good. What all of Elon's antics and claims boiled down to was that this would be a durable, badass, and uncompromising pickup. In other words, built Tesla tough? I don't know. But as more and more Cybertrucks have been delivered, and more wear has occurred over recent months, the Cybertruck has faltered a bit. Let's start with what's on the outside. Very soon after the first deliveries took place, people who live in rainy places noted that the stainless steel exterior was developing some surface corrosion, as you can see here. Now, the hardcore fans will tell you that there's no way stainless steel will corrode like that because, well, it's stainless. And while that does make sense logically, in reality, not all stainless steel is created equal, and the material used on at least those early Cybertrucks has proven not to be completely resistant to the elements. In fact, the truck's owner's manual actually has a statement about the exterior saying how you should constantly clean small dirty areas and use alcohol and soap and water to remove them to ensure the exterior doesn't corrode. Now, I'm no contractor, but part of having a working truck is getting it dirty and dusty and spilling your Burger King on the side of the thing during lunch without having to meticulously clean the exterior every time. Not very truck-like in my opinion. The HFS, or hard steel, is an alloy designed and produced in-house by Tesla, and is so strong that it essentially becomes part of the crash structure. Whereas normal cars' bodies are flimsy, floppy steel or aluminum that dents after you graze it with your belt buckle. So yes, rust and corrosion may have been an afterthought. But the fact that the HSF can literally withstand some bullets, and the fact that the thing like your fenders are actually structural members now, is pretty fascinating technology. Of course, it still has a chassis. It's not a full exoskeleton like some media outlets have claimed, but this is a completely different way of constructing an automobile. Then there's that rear tonneau cover that's strong enough for you to jump up and down on, and also completely blocks out the rear window. The automatic sliding bed cover is certainly helpful for keeping things dry and secure, but visibility in a truck this big is pretty important, and many owners claim that even with all the cameras, seeing out of the thing isn't a strong point here. It seems shocking that a utility vehicle would have a design flaw that blatant, and while it's definitely a problem, there's a reason it's there. Aerodynamically, without the cover, range drops significantly, just like it does when you don't run the included hubcaps that slice the tires and have been recalled. Don't worry, Tesla started shipping replacements that still look like they might totally cut your tires, especially off-road. Oh, and speaking of off-roading, it's maybe the biggest test of a truck's mechanical capability, and the Cybertruck has fared not so great. Motor Trend actually took one on a mild off-road trail and found it frustrating to say the least. The beltline, seating position, and big dashboard hindered visibility. The exterior cameras weren't optimized for the trail. The driving modes themselves had to be constantly switched around in order to keep the truck from performing automatic functions that didn't suit the exact terrain, and they weren't able to utilize the locking differentials because of a lack of an over-the-air update that hadn't been released yet, and on and on and on. And though this isn't a truck-related failure, there was even a recall because of sticking throttle pedals on Cybertrucks, which is concerning in the least for a 600 to 800 horsepower bank vault on wheels. Don't worry, Tesla fixed it by drilling a hole and adding a rivet. Unfortunately, the thing doesn't just have issues when doing hardcore off-road stuff. In fact, Cybertrucks have been failing randomly and leaving some owners pissed off, seemingly left and right. Owners like this guy, whose first Cybertruck left him stranded on the side of the road, and then was given a second one by Tesla just for it to have a similar failure and completely lock up at a charging station. And then there's this guy, whose Cybertruck had a major steering failure. Get this, 1 mile into ownership. And how could we not mention the Cybercut? The very tediously sharp and seemingly dangerous automatic frunk that has cut finger-like vegetables in half and left some damage on this guy's finger. And then there's plain old build quality stuff, of course. There's been issues with the wipers, where an overflow of electrical current has shorted the wiper motors and caused them to straight up fail, which, if you've ever driven an old car with broken wipers, you know how troubling that can be. And of course, there's the classic Tesla issue with panel gaps. We've all seen it on Tesla's other cars, but Elon once claimed that the Cybertruck would have a comically small margin of accuracy of 10 microns, which in theory should eliminate those horrible gaps. And well, that clearly isn't the case here. And while Elon really did claim that the Cybertruck would be able to float, for owners like this guy, it only took the water from a car wash to completely disable it. While it was able to be fixed after a long 5-hour hard reset, the notion some users made that the bulletproof truck doesn't appear to be waterproof is kind of hilarious. But guess what? None of that matters. And this is my third point about the Cybertruck. The design, production process, and real-world truck-like performance, while important, are actually secondary to this truck's true intention. Get as many eyeballs on the brand as possible. Those words might sound harsh, but taking a step back from all the nitpicking reveals that the Cybertruck was built not to claim the trophy for best truck. It was built because they could, and because it looks cool. The project may have started out as something that could have been genuinely worthy of the American utility truck market, but what Tesla probably realized early on was that a fully electric 7,000-pound paintless, completely tech-driven pickup would take much longer to develop properly. Hell, we need things like solid-state batteries to start shipping en masse to even make it possible. Since its 2019 unveiling, Tesla has scrambled to get it roadworthy, and based on just the things we've talked about in this video alone, it's clear they've overlooked many areas of what this truck could have and maybe should have been. And at the heart of it all, Elon didn't care about the truck's ability to be a truck. He wanted to create the best spectacle and eye candy possible. And to his credit, he did! The Cybertruck is owned by more pro athletes, rappers, and famous people than you or I could probably count. It's the hot new thing that the Hollywood elite and the tech bros who have $100,000 to slap down and time to parade their Cybertruck around LA without so much as grazing a patch of dirt want to be seen in. It totally worked. In fact, recent reports have shown that the Cybertruck is leading in EV truck sales across the US, something that Rivian, Ford, and myself were undoubtedly shocked to see. It's clear that there is value to this truck, whether that be emotional, technological, or something else entirely. At the end of the day, a huge number of those who are buying the Cybertruck do so because they can say they own one, so that they can say their truck is faster than supercars, and so they can break necks passing by local gas stations and on Instagram. And the guy that wants a truck for towing, hauling, off-roading, and what have you was always gonna get something else anyways, something that is proven to work. And ironically, that would probably be the very truck that Elon tried to put to shame during the Cybertruck launch, the Ford F-150. And I think this speaks to a larger discussion about truck culture that Tesla completely missed. The fact that truck enthusiasts of the world won't give two shits about it. In fact, they will likely have massive disdain for it. Truck guys for the most part haven't even gotten on board with hybrid trucks, let alone fully electric vehicles. So when Elon said this would shake up the truck segment, it was really only half true. It won't disrupt the American OEMs who build working trucks for the masses, but it has and will continue to redefine the much smaller but very important EV truck industry. But there's one more thing I think deserves your attention. We've talked a lot about the cultural impact of this truck from a consumer view, an enthusiast view, and an industry view, but what we haven't discussed is safety. And I think it's fair to at least think about that aspect because, well, look at this thing. It looks like it could impale me standing still. In all seriousness, to be a major manufacturer like Tesla, you have to understand how to effectively design crumple zones that satisfy the federal regulations. And of course, Tesla certainly does that. But there's also a reason that independent safety tests exist, because some cars are safer than others. And the Cybertruck's crash test videos reveal two important things. First, the Cybertruck is extremely good at taking a hit and not crumbling into a mangled mess. But secondly, you are going to absorb all that kinetic energy that the Cybertruck doesn't. The crash tests look like a welded metal square being hit with bubbles. It just doesn't budge, and while that might sound like a good thing, the physics disagree. Whatever forces the car's structure doesn't absorb is going to be felt by you and the people inside. And what may be worse is the Cybertruck perpetuates the me versus you complex of a crash. I'd hate to see what it looks like to smash one into a small economy car, let alone what it looks like to smash two Cybertrucks together. So while the real-world effects of this remain mostly unseen as of now for the Cybertruck, it's important to remember why most cars don't look like this and aren't designed this way. It's hard to make something as safe as it is cool. But we're curious about what you have to say about the Cybertruck. Was this project worth it for Tesla to gain hype and shock value, or will history prove that it weakened their credibility as a major automaker? Do you love it? Hate it? Just want to drive one and find out for yourself? Let us know down below. And if you enjoyed the video, we would really appreciate it if you hit those like and subscribe buttons. We've got more content coming along very soon, but in the meantime, go check out some of our other videos right over there. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.